Hello ladies and gents, today I am unimpressed. Morning Musume is going to be releasing an album of updated singles called The Best of Updated, though it should be called Riho and Friends. I'm sure that there will be other reviews of this album that are spread across YouTube, so feel free to look for those and find the positive encouragement for this album that you are desiring. This channel will not be looking positively at this album. I'm just gonna be honest with all of you. Let's look at the inherent problem with Morning Musume before I actually delve into this album. Riho can't sing, yet she is chosen as the front girl. Unlike previous front girls that Morning Musume has had, like Abe and Godo and Aichan and Reina, Riho cannot sing. That is an unfortunate reality which many people will disagree with me on, but she can't, and her voice does not sound good singing anything. The second problem is that we have no real unique voices in the group. I'll talk about that near the end of this video. All the voices kind of blend into each other and no one really sounds unique, so even if a song has a couple of vocalists, and even though we have 6 main vocalists right now, Sayumi, Riho, Mizuki, Ayumi, Masaki, and Sakura, the group really sounds too similar to each other and there aren't enough unique voices, unlike previous generations where we've had lots of different girls that had very different voices from one another. We start the album off with Love Machine. Love Machine happens to be the highest selling single to date. It's the song that most people think of when they think of Morning Musume. This version is not so impressive. We have this thing where in the original, the girls were so not used to singing songs like Love Machine. They were used to singing power ballads and boring B-sides that Sungu was writing for them about trains and bikes. And then all of a sudden they had Love Machine, which was crazy and funky and disco and a party. And I think they just went crazy and lost it and just had fun with it. This particular version of the song, the updated, had a lot of auto-tune, but not as much as the rest of the album. It retained a lot of the original sense of instrumentals, however, the energy was gone. The girls almost seemed put out while they were singing it, and to that end, it sounded boring to me. Next we have I Wish. There's something that I really like about I Wish, but there's something that I really don't like about it. Kudo's opening solo, as well as a few vocal changes throughout the song, were my favorite part, especially Sakura's koto. It sounded really pretty. What surprised me about this particular song is that they stripped a lot of the instrumentals and they slowed the tempo of the song, when this seems like it would be a perfect song to really up-tempo it and throw in a lot of auto-tune and a lot of more fun sounds that Sungu likes to use, and yet instead of doing that, they decided to strip it. Now, they gave it a pretty melody, but it was just so slow that it didn't sound anything like the original, and it almost sounded boring? I don't want to say boring because that's not the right word, but it was kind of boring. And I think that it could have been a really fun up-tempo song, and I think the opportunity was really missed. I think that theme flows through the entire album, that this album could have been something really good and then it just really missed the mark. Next we have Red Eye Revolution 21. This is probably my favorite song on the album. I like that it sounds most like the original, and yet it uses a lot of auto-tune and vocal layering, which was really fun. There was something that was a little strange about it with the woes that were going through it. In the original, I'm almost positive that the woes belonged to Yuko and Godo, and sometime during the Platinum era, I remember listening to Red Eye Revolution 21, and it stopped sounding like Yuko and it sounded more like Reina. And I almost feel like they used those same vocals that they recorded during the Platinum era for Reina and kept them in Red Eye Revolution 21, which was a little strange to me because it didn't sound like any of the current girls. It sounded like Reina. So if that's what they did, I think that's a little strange considering that she's not in the group anymore. That being said though, the vocal layering that was used in Red Eye Revolution 21 updated was so good and so cool, and I really like the way that it built upon itself through the entire song. My only real complaint is that Riho sang way too much. The piece updated was my least favorite. I loved the piece. This sucked. The dubstep was probably the worst part for me. I know a lot of people are really praising the dubstep and are saying that it sounds good, but it doesn't match the piece at all, and it really works in a negative way against the song. I think when Hangry and Angry, Ishikawa Rika and Yoshizawa Hitomi covered the piece and did a rock version, it sounded really cool because the way they sold it, they sold it. This one was dubstep just to be dubstep, and I feel like the girls weren't really into it any more than they were into any of the other songs that they've sang so far. Even Red Eye Revolution seemed a little shaky. Rena Revolution seemed so far to be about the only one that the girls really had fun in. This particular one seemed like they were just put out to sing it. And once again, this song relied way too heavily on Riho, and it shouldn't have because it's gonna sound really, really bad in the lives. Next we have Sudowera Live Updated, and at this point of the album, I'm really getting tired of our 6 main vocalists. Again, it's that same problem that everyone's voices sound way too similar to each other, and no one's really unique enough to stand out among the pack. The ones that do have the unique voices are not getting lines, and the one that probably is vocally the strongest of the group, Sakura, is doing a lot more imitating of voices than singing on her own, and I know that she's been criticized for that from other people in the fandom. I think that she's pulling a Lin and she's singing the way that Sunku wants her to, and then when it actually comes to the lives, then she'll really sing like Sakura does. But for the most part, it sounded like a lot of original vocalists were in this song because she was imitating them rather than singing in her voice. I really just want variants of voices. That is what the original song had, is variants of voices, and this one didn't. I do, however, like the way that the Boom Boom Booms built upon itself, and I like the way that the instrumental track followed along with it and almost dropped instrumentals as it got higher. Overall, this song could have been so much and was kind of just a letdown. Next is the manpower. I hated it. Riho was a terrible decision for the shouting lines. I think it could have been a really big success if they had chosen Canon to do those lines, and yet they didn't. They chose Riho, and so it's going to not only sound bad in the live, but it sounds really incomplete and awkward in the album version. I didn't like the vocal mixing. Something was just off about it, and it didn't sound as cool. I think this song really could have benefited from using the original instrumentals and no auto-tune and no processing. It could have been fine just the way it was, and it just seemed a little too tampered with. I don't know why the manpower even had to be on here. It doesn't really fit with the rest of the songs. So this is just one of those that I think that they just tossed out there because they didn't have a better idea. Next we have Aruiteru. This is probably the only saving grace of this album, is that it is a Sayumi solo. While I really like the fun and poppy tone of Aruiteru, it almost makes me sad that they changed it and that they didn't just keep it the way it was, because Sayumi beautifully performed the first half of Aruiteru on her own during the Nine Smiles tour, and I think that it could have sounded really good if it had just been her singing to the original tune, and I think it would have provided a little more of a sentimental feel if she had sang it on her own, considering that she's the last member left who originally sang that song. It also seemed a little tacky and cheap that they seemed to have used a couple of background vocals from Aishuna Romantic. That's just me and the way that it sounded in my head, but that's how it kind of came out with the background vocals that were going on with the doot-doot-doos that Sayumi was singing during various parts of the song. Next is Renai Hunter. No. Riho's shit-tastic solo maxed out the mic so bad that it hurt my ears. This was not good. They also made the instruments louder, and they double auto-tuned Sayu's already auto-tuned vocals, which seemed really unnecessary. This is one of those songs that really just needs to be retired because the current lineup can't sing it the way that it was originally sang, with Gaki and Reina being the main vocalists. It doesn't sound good, and there's too much freaking Riho. Next we have 1, 2, 3, in which Sayumi, Ayumi, Misaki, and Sakura sounded really good instead of Reina, and I really liked the way that the updated version came out. It was strange to me that they kept Reina's woes. However, I don't think that really anybody in the group could perform those woes the same that Reina did. As weird as it sounds, I didn't really miss Reina in this song, and I think that the girls did a very good job re-singing a song that relied very heavily on her. Next is Wakuteka Take a Chance. I don't really get why this song needed to be on here. Misaki's chance was really cool, but again, I'm getting kind of tired of the main vocalist. It's the same problem that I'm having with every other song, that I really need variants. The one thing that I did appreciate about this song is that they seem to have overprocessed Riho's voice a little bit more, and Lord knows that girl needed it. Next we have Help Me. This song is becoming a little like Resonant Blue to me. It's just getting tired and boring. Once again, I don't really miss Reina. However, I really need new vocalists singing this song because it's starting to sound a little dry. I'm bundling Brainstorming and Kimisai because they didn't really need to be on here, and they weren't really updated that much. They didn't sound very different, and I'm just kind of feeling whatever about them being on this album. And we have Wagamama Kino Mama I No Joke, which is, hey, it's here. And finally we have a new song called Wolf Boy. I honestly feel like they could have done another old song instead of this song and included Wolf Boy on the next Morning Musume album that's gonna come out. It just didn't really seem that pertinent to put it on this album. Not that it was a bad song, it was okay, it was decent, but I think paired up with all these songs which were such a letdown to me that it really didn't make me want to care about it as a song, and it sounded like the same over-processed, over-vocaloid, over-auto-tuned Brea and Friends. It's just, Morning Musume is getting to that point right now where I'm getting really tired of the vocalists in a very different way than I have from previous eras where it was, you know, like Reina and Ai-chan the entire time for every single song, or where it was Rika and Miki and Ai-chan for the entire song. And this is a little bit different because unlike previous generations, which I talked about earlier, where there was a lot of variance in the vocals, I feel like everyone kind of runs in very similar lines of vocalness. The only real unique creative voices that we have in the group are Sayumi, Haruka, and Kanon. And I know that I'm partial to Kanon, but she does have a unique voice that sounds different from the others, and when she sings a group line, her voice sticks out the most. And Haruka doesn't get jack diddly squat, but she has a really deep, very cool sounding voice, and she's very underutilized. Yet in all the lives, she looks the happiest to be there. I'm not saying that I want these three girls to sing every single song because I know that eventually I would be like, let some of the other girls sing. But it would be nice if on this album there were a lot more of the three of them. It would be nice if there were a lot more of everyone else, because really it seemed like this album was generally just focused on Misaki, Ayumi, and Riho, and then Sakura as the main other back singer, Sayumi right behind them, and then everyone else, those other background dancers. That's the way that this album seemed. I'm sorry that this, as well as many other current albums and concerts that have been coming out, have had such negative impacts on me, but I'm just really getting tired of the bull crap that this bad singer is getting all of the lines when there are other girls who can sing, and then on top of it they're being made to sing similar to each other, so then it doesn't even really sound unique. And I was talking to Jacob about this a couple weeks ago, that it almost seems like because Morning Musume has recently declared war on other idol groups, that they're just trying to become an idol group, and it doesn't really so much matter about anything else as long as they're making the sales and as long as they're being #1. Who cares if their songs sound the same to every other song that they're writing right now? Who cares that all their voices sound exactly the same because they're trying to make money? And that makes me very sad that Morning Musume is turning into that, when I think that in the past it was of course about money, as any business is, but I feel like the girls were more focused on having fun and putting out themselves and trying to create a fun character that people could latch onto, so that even when a song wasn't that impressive, you still had someone that you listened for and they really just gave it 100,000,000% when they sang, and you could really feel them in their vocals. And that doesn't seem to be happening with the current Morning Musume. Let me know what you think about this album in the comments below, and I would like to see those. And if this was too negative for you, I apologize. It's just the way that it goes sometimes. So I will see you all again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.